In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to find the most common birds that are in your area. I'll also go over the 30 most common backyard birds that you are most likely to see. And finally, if you stick around to the end, I've got a fun challenge that every beginner will love. More on that later. Hey, I'm Caleb from Better Birders, the channel that helps beginner birders build skills, ID more birds, and have more fun outside. Today, we're answering one of the most common beginner questions. That is, what birds am I most likely to see? Whether you're in the suburbs, the city, or somewhere rural, you've got birds around you right now, and so let's figure out what they are and which ones you're most likely to see next. I don't want to waste your time, so let's start with the easiest method. Download the Merlin Bird ID app and tap on the Explore Birds tab. You'll get a list of the most common birds that are in your area based on what people are actually reporting. It's sorted by seasons, that way you're not seeing birds that have already migrated away. There's going to be photos, calls, and descriptions of the birds that can help you identify what you're seeing. This is literally the tool that I use whenever I travel to a new spot or when I want to double check what's showing up in my yard. And best of all, it's free. You'll want to filter by likely birds so you can see what's around you based on your location and time of year. If you want to go a level deeper, open up the eBird app or website and click on Explore, then choose Explore Hotspots to see what's being reported at local parks, lakes, or trails. There's also a Species Map tab if you want to research a specific species that you want to go try and find. That can be really helpful if you're trying to tick a bird off your list. There's also bar charts, which gives you a good idea of how common a bird is throughout the seasons. And the great thing about eBird is it's powered by local birders who submit their sightings every day. If this video is helping you so far, go ahead and tap that like button as it helps this video spread to more beginner birders and lets me know to make more videos like this one. So next, let's go over the 30 most common birds in the US. And if you're a beginner bird watcher, stick around because this will help you recognize more of your local birds easier. These aren't guaranteed in every yard, but they're some of the most widely reported species across all of North America. The first one is the American robin. Pretty distinctive bird, orange belly, black head, and then gray back. Very common on lawns. It's a very common bird across North America, and if you've never read a range map before, the purple means that they are found there year-round, the blue means that they are found there only in the winter or non-breeding season, and then the orange means that they are found there in the summer or breeding season. If you happen to see some yellow on a range map, that means that birds are only found there in migration, which is typically spring or fall. Next bird is the northern cardinal. The males are bright red and very distinctive. The females are a little bit duller, but still have some red on them. Look for this big red bill to separate them from all other birds. Again, a pretty common bird, especially in the eastern and midwestern United States. And a fun fact about northern cardinals is females northern cardinals sing as well as the males, which is pretty rare for birds. Next one is the house finch. Again, a very common bird. Males are red, and then the females are gray. They've got a pretty distinctive bill that is kind of curved and a little blunt, which can be helpful for separating them from other finches. A very common backyard bird found across all of the country. Next one is the mourning dove. Again, a very common bird and often will come to your backyard bird feeders. If you've got some seeds on the ground, they'll probably go for those. Or if you build like a platform feeder and put seeds on that, they could enjoy that. Next is the black-capped and Carolina chickadee. And the reason I've lumped these two together is because they are very similar looking. As you can see, the black-capped is a little bit whiter, and then their range doesn't have a whole lot of overlap. This is the range of the black-capped chickadee. It's more of a northern bird. And then we've got the Carolina chickadee down here, which is more of like a southeastern bird. Very little overlap, as you can see here. There's just a little bit right along the edges of their range. They do occasionally hybridize over that little bit of overlap. If you don't live there, that's great because they're very hard to tell apart, especially when they're hybrids. Next is the blue jay. Distinctive bird. We got the blue crest, blue body, and again, it's a very large bird, so unlikely to be confused with any other birds. Pretty large range across most of the country. This light blue here means that they are found there in the winter, but not super common there. Again, a very loud bird, so you'll probably hear it before you see it. Next is the American goldfinch. We got a bright yellow bird with black wings. The females are a little bit dull, and then in the fall, the males molt to a little bit duller plumage, but still pretty distinctive bird. They like coming to bird feeders and enjoy thistle seed over sunflower seeds, though they do occasionally eat sunflower seeds. For range, you can see they do migrate a little bit up north during the summer, but the majority of the population stays put throughout the whole year. And we've got a very common bird across all of the world, and that is the European starling. They were introduced in New York, I believe, a couple hundred years ago and have since spread to the entire country where they are very common and a bit of a nuisance species sometimes. As far as range goes, they're found throughout the entire country. Next, we've got the downy woodpecker. Pretty common backyard woodpecker, probably the most common. found throughout most of the country. They'll come to suet feeders quite often and will occasionally eat sunflower seeds from your feeder. You can look for them on tree branches. The hairy woodpecker is a little bit larger than the downy woodpecker. Their range overlaps a lot, but the hairy woodpecker is larger and has a larger bill, so that's how you can tell them apart. Next, we've got the song sparrow, probably the most common sparrow in the United States. Will occasionally come to bird feeders, but not a very regular visitor. More often, you'll find them in wet areas such as creek beds or wetlands. A little bit of migration, as you can see here, especially in the winter. They'll head south for more food and warmer temperatures. Next, we've got the red-bellied woodpecker. You might notice its big red head right away, but they do have a little bit of a reddish wash on their belly. I think they should be renamed, but anyway. Pretty distinctive bird. We got this barring on the back, which is pretty unique for woodpeckers. The ladder-backed woodpecker is the only other one that has that. For range, more of an eastern and midwestern bird. Next is the Carolina wren. Pretty common backyard wren. House wren in the summer could be a little bit more common than them. They're more of a southeastern bird, but they are expanding their range northwards, so keep an eye out for them. They might show up if you live in the north. Next is the white-breasted nuthatch. These birds will eat suet or sunflower seeds and are regular visitors at bird feeders. They have a pretty big range. There are several different subspecies throughout this range. The ones in the east, I believe, have different calls than the ones in the west, but they look pretty much identical. Next is another very common bird that was introduced to the United States, and that is the house sparrow. Males look different than the females, but this is a very common bird and a bit of a nuisance species at times. They're found throughout the entire United States, but a regular at bird feeders. Next is the tufted titmouse, gray bird with a pretty big gray crest. Makes it pretty easy to identify. I've also got this rufous color on the flanks. Again, another Midwestern and Eastern backyard bird. Next is the common grackle. A little bit larger of a black bird. They got some iridescence on if the light is right. They migrate farther north during the summer, and then some of them will stay put throughout the entire year. Next one is a pretty unique bird, and that is the dark-eyed junco. The dark-eyed junco has a lot of subspecies that look completely different. So these birds right here are actually the exact same species as this bird right here. This, I believe, is the slate-colored subspecies. And then these two right here, I believe, are Oregon subspecies. So if we look at their range here, as a species, they're found throughout most of the United States, but the birds out here will look different than the birds out here in the east. In the east, it's all the slate-colored subspecies, and then out west, there's quite a few subspecies. You've got the Oregon subspecies, the pink-sided subspecies, the gray-backed subspecies. There's a lot of them. And then in the Black Hills of South Dakota, there's the white-winged subspecies, which looks just like the slate-colored subspecies. But for most of the country, you're going to see the slate-colored subspecies, and then for a lot of people, they are a winter bird. Next is my personal favorite bird, and that is the cedar waxwing. Pretty unique bird with this black mask, and overall just like a tan body. These are pretty small birds, and they've also got, looks like their tail was dipped in wax, which is why they're named that. More of a northern bird that comes south in the winter. They feed on berries, so not going to be a feeder bird. If you got trees that have a lot of berries, these birds might pay a visit. Next is the northern mockingbird, found throughout the entire country. And the state bird of quite a few southern states. Pretty distinctive bird, often very loud and calling a lot. They like to mimic other birds. So if you think you hear like a blue jay calling, might want to pay attention because it could be a northern mockingbird. Next is the chipping sparrow. This sparrow migrates north for most of the country during the breeding season. And then in the south, they can be found there in the winter. And then in California and Arizona, they're found there year round. Pretty distinctive sparrow to separate them from other sparrows. Take a look at that big red cap and black stripe right through the eye. Next, we've got the gray catbird. And yes, in case you're wondering, they do kind of sound like a cat. They've got a few other calls that don't sound like a cat, but their main call does sound exactly like a cat. So if you think you hear a cat in the bushes, go and give it a look because it could be a gray catbird. Pretty distinctive bird with how gray they are, and then they've got this black cap. More of a migrator north for most of the country, and then in the southern United States, they're found there in the winter. Next is the Baltimore oriole. This is a migratory bird for most of the U.S. Pretty distinctive with orange belly and then this black cap. Out west, there's a few more orioles, but out east for most of the Baltimore's range, the only other oriole is the orchard oriole, and they're a lot darker of a red. Next is one of the most common birds in the world, and that is the barn swallow, a migratory bird for most of the U.S. They migrate farther south during the winter. Take a look at that big forked tail. That's the best way to separate them from other swallows. Speaking of swallows, we got the tree swallow, another common migratory bird. A lot of swallows migrate south during the winter because they feed on insects. And during the winter, for most of the United States, there's not a lot of insects out. So that's why they migrate south. Tree swallow is kind of unique because it's blue. But when you're seeing swallows, you're usually looking up, so you get to see the white underside. Unless you're out west, you don't really have a whole lot of trouble with confusion species. The violet green swallow can be kind of tough to separate when you're out west. Next one is the killdeer, and very common bird. Migrates a little bit during the summer, but most of the time stays put. Pretty distinctive, famous for its broken wing display if you get too close to a nest, and it's probably the most common shorebird across the whole country. Next is the rock pigeon. Very common in cities across all of North America. You could find these out in less built up areas, but they typically prefer cities as their go-to to live in. Next is the red-winged blackbird. We've got a male here on the left and then a female on the right. So as you can see, they're all different. The male has its namesake red patch on its shoulder of its wing, and then the females are darker, a little bit dull, but still have some streaking on the underside. As far as range, these are a very common bird. They are kind of unique because they will visit bird feeders, but then they also like to nest out in marshes. It's like, well, the song sparrow loves marshes. It's not going to be found at your bird feeder very often. So that can be the unique thing about red-winged blackbirds. They're also very loud birds. You'll probably hear them before you see them. Another member of the blackbird family is the brown-headed cowbird. Males have this namesake brown head, and then the females are just overall brown. To separate from other blackbird species, go and take a look at that very thick, short bill. As far as range goes, for the western U.S., they're mainly a migratory species during the summer, and then they stay put in the east and farther south. And then our last bird is the Canada goose, a very recognizable and common bird across city parks, really anywhere that there's water. They can also be found in fields too. And now for a fun challenge for beginner birders, and that is to keep a backyard list. This is one of the best ways to stay motivated and track your progress. Create a yard list, which is just a simple list of every bird that you've seen or heard from your yard. You can use a notebook, or you can log full checklists of birds in eBird. And eBird actually has a yard list feature, which is very helpful for keeping track. I highly recommend that you do that. You'll be amazed how fast it adds up, especially once migration kicks in. Question of the day is, what's the first bird that you ever identified? Let me know in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your first bird story. And if you want help identifying the birds that you're hearing but not seeing, check out this video right here because it's all about identifying birds by sound for beginners. I'll walk you through step by step. You seriously will not want to miss this because once you can identify birds by their songs, it is a complete game changer. Check out the video right here. I'll see you there.